Kareem Rae, your host of the One Soccer Nation podcast. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Steve Livingstone. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time today. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, Kareem. Steve Livingstone. Really a great pleasure and honor to be on the podcast. I enjoy listening to it, and it's great to finally meet you and be on the show.
Absolutely. So before I dive into the first question, we actually connected back at Soccerex in Miami. We were sitting right beside Stephen Short, one of our advisors at that time. He's no longer with us now. He's back at USL.
Yeah.
But you were sitting down right beside him, and I sat down right beside Steve, and I didn't know who you were, but I made sure to shake your hand because you were sitting right beside Steve. And then Steven turns to me and he's like, "Do you know who that is?" I'm like, "No, who is that?" He's like, "That's Steve Livingstone, USL Jacksonville." I was like, "No way." So, we didn't get a chance to talk, but we were sitting in, listening into Labella Associates event, which was great. But it was, again, I always like to meet the guests that we have on in person first and then have them on virtually. So it was a pleasure, even though we didn't get to talk, but it was very nice to shake your hand and meet you in person first.
That's cool. That was a great event, and Stephen's good people. I've known him for a long time, and it's great that he's back with the USL. I think back where he belongs, sort of thing. So it was great to see him, but also great to meet you as well, Kareem. So much appreciated.
Absolutely. So my favorite question to ask all our guests is, how did you get involved in the beautiful game?
It's a long story, so I'll try and keep it short. But essentially, the way I like to think about it, I was kind of born into it. So obviously, my accent is not from Jacksonville originally. I come from Glasgow in Scotland. I was born and grew up in the East End of Glasgow, actually in a hospital called Belvedere Hospital that was in the shadow of Celtic Park. And I guess the die was cast from that point because I became a big Glasgow Celtic fan. And as you know, there's a big rivalry in Glasgow between Celtic and Rangers. And it was kind of, I think, a bit disappointing for my dad because he was a Rangers guy. And the funny story was when I was like 5 years old, two of my uncles came down on a day that my dad was at work on a Saturday and decided that I was going to see my first Celtic game. So they took me to see Celtic. And when you're 5 and that's your first game, that's who you're going to support for the rest of your life. So it was great growing up in the East End of Glasgow. The school I went to, again, you could see the stadium from it. You could sit on the front steps of our house and listen, to if there was a goal being scored, and then just became a fan and went kind of faithfully for many years. That's how I kind of get into soccer. I was never good enough to play, but kind of from an early age, kind of was more into the management of sport and had a great opportunity to work for the NFL in Europe. So made the kind of switch from soccer to American football, and for the next 10 years spent selling American football to soccer fans, which was kind of interesting. And then I had the opportunity to come over to the States and work for the Jaguars for 10 years, which was always interesting. Somebody calls and gets through to the head of marketing and it's a Scottish guy, and you spend 20 minutes explaining where the accent comes from and what do you know about American football. So that was always good fun. But then a great opportunity came up in 2013 to get back to soccer, and I left the NFL and the Jaguars to kick off the Jacksonville Armada in the NASL, and we had a great build up. We launched the team in front of 16,000 people. Had a great thing going there, but then unfortunately the NASL collapsed, and I found myself kind of via some various different places like US Soccer and Copa America, working with the USL. So that's the kind of how I get into soccer and how I got to where I was or where I am now. So it's been quite a journey, but it's been an enjoyable one.
Absolutely. So how has all the experiences and skills along your journey and career help with, diving straight into the project that you're working with in Jacksonville with USL?
Well, I think what's got me to this point and has arrived here has really been hard work, but some luck as well. And everything that I've been through in the course of my career, I think has added components to what I'm dealing with now. So, as the president of a USL expansion team, where we'll be launching both men's and women's professional soccer, and also pre-professional teams as well in League Two and W League, and then our tie-in with Florida Elite on the youth side. That's a big remit. That's a lot of different things that come into play there. Everything from dealing with coaches, dealing with players, finding a front office staff, building a stadium, um, you know, developing partners and sponsors, selling tickets, dealing with the media, and really a lot of those components were built up over kind of 30 years in the business, whether it be, prior to working with the NFL, where I spent almost 10 years working in the soccer media, to then getting a great apprenticeship in sports management with the NFL, which I spent almost 20 years with. So I like to see it as a kind of a culmination of the journey that's brought me to this point. And I'm really just fortunate and lucky. We've got a fantastic ownership group here. We've got tremendous support from the city of Jacksonville and St. John's County. We've got a great relationship with our youth partner, and we're really trying to assemble, a world-class staff, both on the front office and the technical side right now. So I'm really, really grateful to be in this position.
Amazing. It's a massive project. Are you able to mention? I've heard the number, um, you know, but are you able to mention how big the project is on the number side publicly?
Yeah, I mean it's in excess of $1 billion project. The project includes development of a 15,000 capacity that could be expandable soccer specific stadium that will also act as a great community stadium for the wider community. So we'll not only be playing 40 professional soccer games there a year, but we'd like to be doing other things like everything from high school American football to lacrosse to rugby, and programming the stadium for 100 plus events. The site that we've landed on, excuse me, my monitor light went off there. The site that we've landed on, I can't reveal that yet, but hopefully we'll make an announcement on that fairly soon. Also includes a large commercial component. So, as you know, in the USL right now, you really don't get a USL franchise without having a fully baked business plan that includes some kind of commercial development around your stadium that's going to lead to the sustainability and the long-term growth of your soccer teams. I think far too often we've seen projects like spring up and they last a couple of years and then they fade out. And I would say the Armada was one of those projects that suffered from that. Our biggest challenge really was, kicking off without being in our own stadium, and I think that's vitally important. It's not only important from the aspect of having somewhere to play and having somewhere to call your home, but from the business model. The business model really doesn't work if you're renting and borrowing stadia over a long period of time. So you really need to be in your own facility, and you really need to be generating revenues and incomes that come back into the team. And our business model not only includes that stadium, that again, we want to program for 100 plus events a year, but also a wider commercial development around the stadium that the teams will benefit from. So, I mean, we all know in soccer and in any sport, some seasons are better than others. You have one season where you maybe win the championship, but the next, you're lucky if you win a half a dozen games. So that type of business model allows for sustainability on a long-term play, and it also allows us to set up a program and an organization that would weather any storm. So say something bad happened with the league, we still feel good about the foundation that we built. Not that anything bad's going to happen with USL. We definitely see that as being something that's going to continue to grow. And we looked at all of the leagues. I mean, we looked at MLS Next Pro, we looked at NWSL. We did our due diligence in all of it, and we just felt that the USL gave us the best opportunity for growth and success. And yeah, so that's the reasoning behind where we're at and what we're building. In addition to that, we're also looking to connect with the community in a major way, and to, for the first time in Jacksonville, create a pathway to high-level professional soccer. And that's important to stress, high level. Other pathways have existed before, but not to this extent. So again, both on the men's and probably more importantly on the women's side, we'll provide an outlet for youth players to aspire to, and have a system here where they can become professional soccer players if they're good enough without having to leave Jacksonville and the city here, which is pretty much what's happening right now.
Absolutely. Steve, you mentioned so many big points. The mixed use development, $1 billion plus, commercial, 15,000 seat stadium that could potentially expand. The ownership group, you guys have some celebrities, some big athletes, NFL players that I'd love for you to mention their names. So many big points. And in regards to the stadium, you guys are really baking everything into this, because if teams are not owning their stadium, they're losing out on naming rights sponsorship, which is one of the biggest, one of the top revenues, controlling, revenues. And then you also mentioned being able to utilize the stadium 365 days, multiple sports. So, when we're talking about investing into USL, there's not really a limit in regards to what you could do on the real estate side, and also being able to include other sports. So, I'm really curious to know if, when you guys go back in time and look at when you guys started, was that the vision to include all these things that you guys have going on, or were you guys soccer and real estate?
It's interesting that you touch on that, Kareem, and it kind of brings in the ownership group as well. And the answer to that, the answer is no. No, we did not have this vision. We knew that the market is a great market for soccer, and we knew that the market was not getting the level of soccer that it needs. Jacksonville is one of the fastest growing cities in the country right now. In fact, we're the largest market size in the country that doesn't have high level professional soccer. And there's something wrong with that, and a big part of that was probably the failure of the NASL and the Armada in being able to kind of get off the ground. And I think that made some people wary about, is it truly a market that can sustain professional soccer? Since then, and that was almost 10 years ago now, in fact, it's more than 10 years ago since we started it, our population has almost doubled here in the Jacksonville market. I mean, we've got roughly about 2 million people within our kind of region now. And the analysis tells us that there's roughly about 300,000 soccer enthusiasts in that market. So, when you hear people saying that Jacksonville can't sustain a professional soccer team or even 2 professional soccer teams, it's nonsense. It really is. I mean, we're a population as big as the city that I was born in Glasgow. And how many soccer teams do they have there? So there's plenty of scope. There's plenty of space. When we looked at bringing a USL franchise here, there was nothing here. And we felt that there was a need for that. And it took us a little while to get the franchise rights. We worked through that. And the ownership team that we pulled together was phenomenal, because that ownership group were not in it for the money, so to speak. They were in it more for Jacksonville and Northeast Florida and the community. And they saw an opportunity through involvement in this to make a difference and do something special. And then the business, the business plan was great as well in terms of their enthusiasm. But I wouldn't say that our principal owner, Ricky Kaplan, Tim Tebow, who everybody knows, Fred Taylor. Tim and Fred aren't ordinarily soccer guys. They're coming, they're getting around to that, but that wasn't why they initially got into this. They got into this because of the community play, and how Jacksonville was not represented in what's arguably the biggest game in the world, and how there was a lot of interest in soccer here, and how we can use soccer to influence the community and make this a better place to be. So that's why they're involved in it. We want to do some good. That's why we spent a lot of time in terms of naming the team and coming up with a team brand. We could have named that ourselves, 3 years ago. We decided that wasn't the approach to take on it. We wanted to take it back to the community. We did a huge survey. 5,000 people, sports fans and general, population responded to that. We then held a series of town hall meetings around the 5 counties that surround Jacksonville, and we listened to what the fans said, and they told us, what the team should represent, what it should stand for, even the colours that are reflective of a Jacksonville sunrise, which is a big deal here in Jacksonville. People get up early to go to the beach and watch that. So everything from our colour palette to our values to our mission to our name was suggested by the fans. And the Jax came from the region. Sporting Club came from this idea of being authentic to soccer, but something that could embrace other sports as well. And again, we don't just want to be representative of a small area in downtown Jacksonville. We want to be representative of the entire area, the entire region, and that's what we're trying to do. So again, between our ownership group, between the impact or the feedback that we had from fans, the involvement that we've had with the fans, it's really been a wonderful project, and something that I think, genuinely will serve the soccer itch, if you like, but goes beyond soccer as well.
It's huge that, I love that you mentioned that point in regards to making sure that the community is involved, because it's a community asset that you guys are building and have built, and getting their inputs, because they're the ones that are going to be bleeding for the club. I've heard it, a number of times internally, at our team, Fred Mathis and Chris Kinney, they always mention involve fans into everything.
Yeah, it's key. It's where I think a lot of startups and a lot of teams let themselves down. They either don't do the hard work that's involved in that, or they think they know better, or they don't even know they need to do that. That's another thing I think about our ownership group, is that, having people like Tim, having like people, Fred, in the organization, Ricky, they understand the kind of business model. They understand how important it is to involve the fans. They're our main stakeholder. Our ownership group really, and this is an important word, really see themselves as stewards of what they're doing here. And that's something that really drew us to the ownership team when we were meeting with them initially, that it wasn't all about them. It wasn't an ego trip. It was something that was really for the betterment of the community at large, and something that we could use as a platform and a vehicle to do good things. So that's where our ownership group is coming from. And they're all Jacksonville people as well, which I think is really important. They care about Jacksonville. They bleed Jacksonville. They're not going anywhere else, and they really want to make this thing as successful as it can possibly be.
It's music to my ears. It puts a smile on my face, and again, I love what you guys have accomplished and everything that you guys are doing.
Well, you look, Kareem, you look at any successful club in the world, and where has that club kind of evolved from? It's evolved from the fans, and it's evolved from the community. One of my heroes in life growing up was the Celtic manager, Jock Stein, who came out with the famous quote, famous among Celtic fans anyway, that without the fans, football is nothing. And, to me, that's the beauty of the beautiful game. That's the beauty of football, soccer, that you have this interaction between the pitch and the fans that you really don't have to that extent in other sports. I mean, even sports like rugby and American football, you don't get that kind of you know. My lights have gone off again. Time's up. You don't get that type of interaction, that type of passion that and we've all been there. We've been on the terraces when our team's been down a goal and there's 5 minutes left, and the fans just get behind them, and in places like the Cop and places like the jungle at Celtic Park, and the fans make a difference. There's really no other sport that I think does that to that extent, and can change a game. So again, for me, it's being able to share that passion through soccer and bring it to new markets. Um, the thing about our market, though, is there's a lot of soccer people in the market. They've come from other places. They've developed here themselves. We've actually got a great history of player development here in Northeast Florida as well, which again, I think if we can give them the right structure, we'll get even better. So, yeah, it's an exciting time.
You also mentioned, acquiring the market rights. What year does that go back to? And how long was that process for you guys?
So, in terms of our discussion with the USL, you mean in terms of the franchise?
Yep.
Really kind of began those discussions around 2017, and we weren't awarded the franchise until like 2020, and then we officially announced it, I think, in 22. So it's been a long process. It's been a journey, but again, I think it's been a good process to go through. And when you look at the USL, a lot of people don't realize this, but the USL is in more communities across the United States than any other league. You know, in terms of all of the leagues that the league runs, from youth all the way through to Championship and Super League, it's 7 different leagues. Our leagues, our teams are in over 200 communities, which again is this built-in pathway, if you like, that, at the moment the league are trying to, connect the top end of it. And that's why we're seeing a lot of expansion in the Championship, and we'll see some expansion in the Super League as well. So, for me, again, it was the strongest league for us to be in, and one of the demands of that league is you have to have a very good business plan, because they don't want to see teams collapsing and falling in the way that we've seen in other leagues. And again, that's why the process takes a little bit longer to get to that point. But we went through that process. We proved what we could do. We began discussions with the city, with the county. We at an early stage brought in other investors. We've started talking sponsorships at a very early level as well. We haven't kicked a ball yet. However, we've got a media partnership with the NBC and ABC affiliates here in the market. We're running a half-hour soccer show once a week that goes out at noon on a Saturday before the EPL games. We're getting like a bigger audience share on that show than some MLS games are getting right now. So again, there's a passion and enthusiasm for soccer in our market. It just has to be kind of approached the right way.
So that's huge. So when you guys started the process back in 2017 to acquire the market rights, and then it wasn't until 2020, so 3 years later. So was that due to, were you guys competing with another group in regards to acquiring that market, or it was just the process that you guys were going through with the league?
Yeah, I think they're letting too much cat out of the bag. There were competing interests. So for us and my business partner Tony Allegretti, we kind of founded the thing, and we're not multi-millionaires or billionaires, but because of the Premier League standards, you have to involve investors in this that have some kind of financial wherewithal, and that was the biggest challenge. And being able to locate those people and track those people down and get them involved, and that's what took the best part of 3 years. And we had stops and starts. We actually had other investors that were involved initially that decided to change their mind and go in a different direction. But we're really blessed and grateful to have landed with Ricky and Tim and the group that we have now. They're phenomenal. They just understood what was the opportunity. And again, it was really through their ambition that we are where we are now. I think Tony and I were envisaging, maybe a 20-acre site with a 5,000 stadium and a parking lot. That's just not going to work. It has to be scaled. And again, I put a lot of, a lot of credit to Ricky Kaplan and the ownership group for pushing us and saying, we need to be ambitious. We need to do this on a large scale. We want to be the best that we can be. We want to be the best USL Championship and Super League team that we can be. Let's do it the right way. And I think you're seeing that ambition in other places like Louisville, which I had the opportunity to spend a couple of years involved with, and then places like Rhode Island, Sacramento, Phoenix. They're all markets that want to do this thing the right way. And that's why the process takes so long, but that's the process that we've gone through.
You mentioned Louisville, Rhode Island. So when I, speaking from an outsider perspective, when I look at Rhode Island, that from my understanding, that's the biggest project as of right now. And then would Jacksonville be bigger than Rhode Island?
Potentially. I think we would be in a similar scale.
Okay.
And, the guys in Rhode Island have done an amazing job. And I know it's been difficult for them up there as well. They've had some starts and stops like we have. But that's the gold standard. That's what everybody's looking at. And they've been incredibly helpful for us. They've been a kind of unpaid consultant for us. Brett Johnson and his group are first-class individuals. They're doing it the right way there. And we've learned a lot from that group. And the other thing I think about the USL, the strength, even though we're not a single entity league like the NFL, everybody's responsible for their own revenue. There are some shared revenues. But the great thing about the USL is that there's so many other teams out there that want you to be successful. We're only as strong as our weakest link sort of thing. So there's definitely a willingness and I would say it's more of a kind of collegiate kind of approach to things in working with each other. The league does a fantastic job with its expansion group, which Stephen Short is now going to be part of, in providing best practice and guidance to new teams. And really the blueprint's there. If you follow the blueprint, you're going to be successful. And I think that's tremendous. We have a large league office, and that's great that we can rely on that. Compared to, NESL, we maybe had 6 people in the front office. There's not an awful lot that the league can do to help teams in that front, but the advice and the support that we've got from the USL in terms of marketing, in terms of ticket sales, sponsorship development, stadium development, investors, the whole 9 yards, they've got the guidebook on it. And we've really been lucky to have that, at our disposal. And most expansion teams are lucky to have that at their disposal as well.
Yep. Shout out to Stephen Short. Shout out Brett Johnson. Also had Brett on the podcast and Stephen. Got to spend some time to discuss Rhode Island's $400 million plus mixed-use development project. So I'm just personally interested to get an understanding. So it'd be in regards to project size, it would be Jacksonville, Rhode Island, Louisville.
Well, the Louisville project hasn't been fully realized yet. One thing that they've been dealing with there, fantastic stadium, amazing experience for the fans, for the players. The timing was difficult. They opened that stadium as COVID was hitting. So I think some of the commercial development around that stadium has been delayed somewhat. They've got a great team up there, a great ownership group, and they're catching up with that now. Again, I think it's kind of too early to say which one's the biggest. I think you've got to exist as well. So we will not claim to be the biggest project right now. And then the lights have gone out again. I need to pay the electricity bill. I really do. Um, but we're conscious about sustainability here in our office, and we like to save energy. So when you're not moving around, the lights go off. But in respect of project size, I think the more important thing is project success and longevity, and that's what we're aiming for. And again, we've been very lucky in being able to learn from best practice in places like Rhode Island, places like Louisville, and apply that to our project, and hopefully learn lessons and miss some of the downturns that some of those projects have had. There's no doubt we'll have ours as well, and have already had. But I think the more we learn from these other projects, the smoother it will be.
I want to circle back to you guys securing the market rights and the city. Were you guys also in conversation with the city before you guys had exclusivity rights, or did you guys wait to secure exclusivity rights and then have that conversation with the city to gauge their interest?
Yeah, that's the old chicken and egg scenario, and you've really got to be doing both at the same time. To capture a city or a county's interest in your project, you really have to come to them with some kind of plan, some kind of proposal, and invariably that includes support from the league. At the same time, we have to go sell it to the league and say, this is a great market for soccer. Here are all the things that we could achieve in this market. It's ready. We didn't have to do too big a sell to the USL on the market. I think Jacksonville is always one that they felt that the USL needed to be in. And given our limited success with the Armada when we launched it, there was almost proof there that this market was a good market. It was just having the right business plan for sustainability that was important. And again, I think with the USL, they've done a great job in providing that blueprint. So again, when we opened that negotiation up with the USL, it was something that they were keen to support. And, again, the support that we got from them was, you guys definitely were interested. Go back and talk to the city and come back to us and see what happens. And that's what we did. We then went to we went to St. John's County first, and then we went to the Duval County, which, both serve the kind of Jacksonville area. And we put it to them that we think we can attract a USL franchise here if we can get support from you in terms of land and a stadium development. And we got an affirmative on both of those, and then it kind of begins from there. But I think the key things that both the cities and the league are looking for is the market suitable? Is there investment? Is there an ownership group that's local and wants to, be around this thing for a long time? And then, I think there's 5 criteria. Is there a youth setup that can benefit player development? And then the last one is really, is there the investment that can go into this thing and make it happen? And I think once you answer those 5 questions, those 5 criteria, then you're kind of off and running at that point.
So from there,
and again, I would add as well, Kareem, when we came to the city, the USL was an easy sell because of the success that it already had. We could point to that success. We could point to that growth. And, once I think that the toughest thing for mayors and city officials to get their head around is the structure of soccer in the US and where everything is and what's real and what's not and what's amateur and what's professional and what's League One, League Two, League Three. That's like a mystery to city officials.
yeah.
But I think when you sit down and you educate them and explain to them that this is the structure and this is how it works, and these are the values of the teams, and these are the types of ownership groups that are around the teams. They quickly get it, and they quickly figure out, the people they should be talking to.
That's it. Also, what about, what are your thoughts on all the big events that are coming? You got this year, 2025 FIFA Club World Cup, 2026 FIFA World Cup, 2028 Olympics in LA, and potentially a 2031 FIFA Women's World Cup in the US. All this football or soccer being played in America. What are your thoughts on that, and what kind of projections are you guys seeing for your club, the effects it will have?
I mean, as long as we've been doing this, I think it comes down to God has a plan, and we'd have liked to have started a team back in 2017, 2018, but it just wasn't happening. And if you want to call it God, divine intervention, the timing of this is phenomenal. So being able to launch the women's team in 2025 when there's a lot of interest in soccer, and then come back with the men's team 26, 27 is awesome as well. So our timing couldn't be better. We think that we'll get a spin-off from that. We think people will be switched on to soccer. The last few years, we've had some great opportunities around like Summers of Soccer and watch parties and everything from the Euro Championships to, Champions League to, you name it. There's been something happening in soccer, and it's getting bigger and bigger. So, 10 years ago when we had a watch party, we were lucky if 5 people turned up to it. Now we have a watch party, there's, 200 people turn up to it. So I think the timing of it, I'd like to say it was by design, but it really wasn't. It was really more luck. But we can certainly leverage that interest that's coming globally and nationally here in 26. There's no better time to be launching, I think, a professional soccer team than now. And then the other factor that's an important one, and one of the reasons why we decided to lead with the women's team, was Jacksonville has never had a women's professional team sport ever in its history. Now, we've had women golfers, we've had women tennis players, but we've never had a professional women's team. So this will be historic. This will be the first women's team to represent our city, which is 50% female. So that's huge. We just elected our first female mayor here in Jacksonville this past year. And she's been a huge advocate and supporter of what we've been doing. So, some historic times for Jacksonville right now. First women's mayor, first women's professional sports team, World Cup coming up. That's something that we hope to leverage and get people excited about. We just launched a fairly extensive marketing campaign, which talks about essentially, the first women's team. And our catchphrase is making her story instead of his story. So it's really phenomenal to see, women's soccer on billboards around the town and on TV commercials and stuff like that. And the feedback that we're getting for it is genuine excitement. I mean, I'm the father to 2 daughters that are now grown up, but if they'd had something like this when they were playing soccer at 7 and 8, they would have been fired up about it too. So this is just a phenomenal time to do it.
History in the making.
History and her story in the making. Her story.
Her story, yes.
There you go. Yeah.
So for you, home is Scotland, and now the new home is US. And you're creating something massive in Jacksonville, Florida, in the US. How does it, like, for you personally, how does it feel on working on this project, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I guess it's full circle for me, because instead of selling American football to Scottish people, I'm now selling, soccer to Americans. So that's kind of ironic. I guess I like a challenge, but I would say the sell here is a lot easier, given the growth of the game here and the enthusiasm for the game. You make an interesting point there. I've been in Jacksonville now for 20 years. My family and I, we moved here when our daughters were very young. And I'll be honest with you, the first 3 years, 4 years were tough. I mean, you come from Glasgow where the average temperature is 60 degrees to, July temperature in 110. It's not easy. And, it's just a cultural change entirely. And it really wasn't until I think years 3 and 4 when I started to become a Jacksonvillian, or someone from Northeast Florida, and really the involvement with the Jaguars and then the involvement with the Armada, and working with our supporters groups. I had a big program with the Jaguars that included volunteers, fans that came in and helped the organization, called the Champions Club. And it was really through my interaction with those people that I began to feel welcome in Jacksonville, and shared their values and shared their pride for the city. It's a wonderful city. It's an amazing city to bring up, a family. Um, People in Jacksonville will hate me for saying that because they want to keep it a secret. They don't want everybody to move here, but it's a phenomenal, phenomenal place to live. And again, I think the city's come a long way in the last 20 years. We really want to take the next step up and, improve the city. There's a lot of good people in the city that want the best for the city, and to make Northeast Florida a great place to continue to live. So I have a lot of pride in Florida. Actually, when I spent the 2 years up in Louisville, we never moved house. My wife and my kids stayed in Jacksonville. They were going through high school at the time, and we didn't want to uproot them. And it's really the best thing we ever did. I mean, I had to commute and go back and forward, but actually coming back to Jacksonville in 2018, after that period, I was home again, and we really went into super drive, if you like, and getting the project going. So for me, this has really been a labor of love, a lot of pride and passion. Even though I speak with this funny Scottish accent, I'm really a Jacksonville and Northeast Florida guy. I love the Jags. I wish we could bring more success for the people here. And again, very proud of being able to be involved in this soccer program, and just to represent Jacksonville, to represent Northeast Florida. I'm humbled by it, and I don't take it lightly. It's a huge responsibility. We need to get it right this time, and we will get it right this time, and make the soccer fans and the wider populace in Jacksonville proud, and bring some championships here as well.
Amazing. Steve, I'm looking forward to catching a game with you once you guys are up and running and sitting down and chatting in person and watching a game at your stadium. So looking forward.
Awesome. Well, I won't be talking much as the game goes on, but we can catch up at halftime.
Yeah, for sure. If you don't mind, I have two more questions and some fun ones. We talk about this project. Funding is massive as well, raising capital. What would you say is the approach that you guys have taken to raise the capital necessary to fund this project? Has in regards to like a high level strategy in regards to funding the project?
It's really been a kind of considered approach to it. We've brought in initial investors. Many of them were sold on soccer, and some of them were sold on Jacksonville and the community project. We have everybody that's involved in our ownership group has some connection to Jacksonville, has some connection to the community, and want to do something that's going to benefit the community. And I think when we announce everything in terms of the location of the stadium and all that stuff, that'll all make sense. So I mean, the approach that we've taken on it is we've really tried to get people invested in the team, in the opportunity around the USL. And then as the project develops and we move to a stadium and then we move to a commercial development, there'll be opportunities for larger investment in those areas. But the important thing is, and again, our ownership team have been great about this, they've set up our companies and our investments in a way that one benefits from the other. So while a large-scale commercial development around a soccer stadium will attract specific commercial development because people want to be around sports facilities. Some people want to live near a sports facility. For us, there'll be an opportunity to take some of the resources and some of the profit that we get from the commercial development and put it back into the soccer team. So again, when you have a bad season, it sustains you through that. If you want to be competitive, you need to sign the best players. So that's really the engine that's going to be powering us, and we're really excited about that. So again, that's the way that we've been looking to build the investment up. Small amount to start with, and then bringing in the larger scale that really is more on the real estate and the commercial development, but will be supportive of the soccer team as well.
And the last question, thank you for sharing that. And the last question I have is, in regards to land, how many acres is the project, and how long would you say was the process in order to acquire the place?
Well, it's substantial. I'm not going to give you the exact number, but it's more than 50 and less than 200. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the project. We've taken a lot of inspiration for the project from a similar project in Atlanta called The Battery. You may know about it. If you don't, definitely look it up. The Atlanta Braves, a number of years ago, decided to relocate their stadium from downtown to a suburban area. I'm not saying that we're in a suburban area, but the stadium development also includes a large-scale commercial development around it, and it is amazing. It's first class. It's a world-beating facility. It's phenomenal, and the amount of money that's generated from the commercial development far exceeds anything that the baseball team is doing. So again, very smart of them to do that, and a lot of the advice and some of the involvement in our investment group has come from that. So that's been a hugely successful project, and we want to replicate that in Jacksonville. So we're kind of calling it the Jacksonville version of The Battery, but will be led by soccer rather than baseball. So again, we're really excited about that. We think we've got a great proven model there that will work. It may be on a slightly different scale, but again, that goes back to that idea of not reinventing the wheel, taking good ideas from places, applying best practice, and carrying that out and executing that. And that's what we're working on right now.
Could you spell that for me? I want to check that out.
Yeah, The Battery is probably my accent. Battery. It's called the Atlanta Battery, and it's part of the Atlanta Braves in Major League Baseball. Yeah, they have a big sponsor there called Truist, the bank. So it's called Truist Park at Atlanta Battery, and again, check it out. It's quite something.
I know we're coming up on time, but if it's cool with you, Steve, I'd love to ask you some fun questions off topic.
Sure, I'll try and be fun. It's not all business, right? Yeah,
for sure. What's your favorite type of? Do you have a favorite artist musically?
I've got quite an eclectic mix of musical favorites. Everyone from Bob Marley through to Bruce Springsteen. I actually saw Bruce Springsteen back in Scotland this past summer. That's the first time I'd seen him live, and it was amazing. But right now I'm kind of on a country kick with Charlie Crockett, who's an up and coming kind of country artist who's only been doing it for the last 15 years or something, but everybody's got to know about him now. And we actually went, my wife and I went to one of his concerts to see his supporting act, a guy called Leon Bridges, and then Charlie came on, and we were like, wow, this is awesome. So I'm really into Charlie's music right now. It's you should check it out. It's good. It's a mix of everything.
Nice. I'll check it out. I'll ask you for the full name after.
Yeah.
Ronaldo or Messi?
Messi.
Why?
Easy. I have this argument with my daughter all the time. she thinks Ronaldo is the greatest. There's never been anybody like Messi, and I don't think there ever will be. I've been fortunate. I've seen him play live a number of times, and I was there for the Copa America Centenario final that they lost. Argentina lost, and that's the game that he retired right after, only to come back. But watching him play that night, unbelievable, unbelievable. The guy's balance, his footwork, his skill. I don't think you can match that. And Ronaldo's great. Don't get me wrong. You know, if you like just a big striker that can hit the ball, fantastic. But nobody's as complete as Messi.
I've gone to see Ronaldo play in a friendly match against TFC Toronto FC. But I never got to see Messi. I don't know if I ever will though. I don't know. We'll see. But the last,
you might.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said you might. Who knows? Maybe you'll decide to finally retire at Sporting Club Jacksonville in the next few years. That would be nice.
Maybe, you never know.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Find Miami.
Yeah.
The last one I'll ask is what's your favorite food to eat?
Oh boy, I'm going to be really boring and just say steak. I mean, you can't go wrong with a good, well done, not well done, medium, a good medium steak. You know, from a good steak place. I like making it myself as well. I kind of challenge myself with that every time I make it, and I think I've got it down now. It's taken me probably 20 years to get to that point, but there's no finer food. And if you throw a lobster tail on top of that as well, you got me.
The done deal.
I should have said something like haggis or something, you know, being Scottish, but I got to be honest with you, it's got to be steak.
Yeah. Well, Steve, this was great. It was a pleasure to spend time with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the One Soccer Nation podcast.
It's been a pleasure. Great to talk to you, Kareem, anytime, and you know, keep in touch with us, and hopefully we'll have some exciting announcements in the near future.